Looking for a super offer for Super Bowl 58? Well, DraftKings has you covered. New customers can bet on the big game and turn $5 into $200 instantly in bonus bets. The line right now is at San Francisco minus 1.5, but you can bet all sorts of things on the game, even the coin toss, although big shock, it's going to be 50-50 odds there. My brothers and I always place a bunch of bets on the Super Bowl every year. I'm not actually sure what I'm going to do yet, but I'm excited. It should be a great game. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code HOOPS, that's HOOPS. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets, only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 58 with code HOOPS. Again, that's HOOPS. The crown is yours. All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Thursday, everybody. Again, for those of you guys who were here for the trade deadline show earlier today, broke down 6 different trades, a bunch of other stuff around the league, and then we also hit the 3 games from the Wednesday night slate. So make sure you guys check that show out. It's under our live feed because we did it live on YouTube earlier today. This episode, we're just going to be covering Lakers Nuggets. Denver beats the Lakers for the 7th consecutive time. Looks very similar to a lot of their other recent matchups. And then in the later portion of the show, the Golden State Warriors capped off their road trip, winning their 5th time in the last 6 games, beating the Pacers, just blew them out in the 3rd quarter. So we're going to break down that game as well in the later portion of the show. And then we're going to try something today. We'll see if it actually works, but I have the chat here in front of me, and we're going to take some questions from the audience at the end of the show. So when we get to the end of that Warriors-Pacers segment, those of you guys who want to stick around, we'll kind of bounce around and do some question and answer stuff. Before we get started, you guys know the drill. Subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel. It'd mean a lot to me if you guys take a second to scroll down, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget about our podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. It also is really helpful if you leave a rating and review on that front. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss show announcements, as well as the film threads that I do. Did another one this morning on the Clippers-Pelicans game from last night. And last but not least, keep dropping mailbag questions in the YouTube comments. We may or may not do a mailbag tomorrow. If not, we're definitely going to do one next week. So keep dropping them in the comments, and we'll get to them at some point in the next week or so. All right, let's talk some basketball. So like I said, 7th straight time Denver has beat the Lakers, and all of them look like this. They have their advantages. They have a lot of really big, strong forwards that can kind of bang around inside, so they can do some stuff to kind of disrupt a little bit of what the Denver does. Like they forced Jokic into 6 turnovers and in general got out in transition quite a bit, did some damage on the offensive glass. Like they had their success, but every time it gets into a close game late, they just can't execute with Denver in the half court. And one of the specific things like that I think gets overlooked too often with Denver is we focus so much on Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, as we should, and that's kind of basketball culture. It's just the way we talk about the game in so many different ways. But one of the primary driving forces behind them being as successful as they are is the 5-man grouping that they put on the floor, including Michael Porter Jr., including typically KCP, although it was a lot of Peyton Watson at the end of this game. And then also with Aaron Gordon, they can capitalize on different matchup strengths even when teams are throwing the kitchen sink at their best players. And early on in the game, the Lakers were throwing everything at Nikola Jokic, and they identified a quick early advantage. It's like, oh, Rui Hachimura is on the floor. LeBron James and Rui Hachimura kind of play the same position. They're both big, strong forwards that kind of are too big to navigate screens really well. Let's just run Michael Porter Jr. off of these kind of off-ball, off-screen actions. And he was getting all the way to the cup for dunks and floaters early in the game and just coming off of ball screens, shooting. He just I should say off ball screens, but like he was really successful early in the game because of a specific matchup. Anthony Davis was locked in at the beginning of this game and was doing a great job on Nikola Jokic. I thought Nikola Jokic was kind of coasting a little bit as well, just kind of saving his energy for the damage that he did there in that second half. And they just found that specific advantage. Okay, like they can't deal with Michael Porter Jr. Let's keep spamming that specific action. And then later in the game, they realized like, hey, Taurean Prince is the guy they have guarding Jamal Murray. Taurean Prince is a bench wing who is an average perimeter defender. This is our guy to go to. 104, 104. They run a series of screening actions for Jamal Murray, and he ends up with a pretty damn good look there at the top of the key with what ended up basically being the landslide shot. Because once he made that, the Lakers felt shell-shocked. LeBron missed that little floater off the glass. Jamal Murray had that transition push to make the floater. Then we had the gamble from Austin Reeves to try to get a steal. Like, I saw a lot of Lakers fans getting on Austin, and don't get me wrong, it was a bad decision, but that's not where the game was lost. The game was lost based on that specific matchup. The Denver Nuggets were able to get consistently better shots because they had better matchups all over the floor. The key one that they went to late was Jamal Murray against Taurean Prince. And again, like, one of the things I noticed with Denver is they can get, this is pretty typical for defending champs and teams that have been together a long time. Like they can kind of float through games a little bit. It just seemed like every time the Lakers actually had some sort of real momentum in the game, they were able to make a big play. It's like, oh, call a timeout because the Lakers got it back within 6. And it's like, here's Nikola Jokic just hitting a quick, spinning lefty drop step into the lane for right around Anthony Davis, like he's tissue paper for a wide open layup. And you're like, oh, like that's right. Whenever they need a basket, they can get one. Oh, you brought it back to, a 4-point game late. And it's like, we're just going to run a simple back screen action for Michael Porter Jr. and take advantage of 2 bad off-ball defenders and Rui Hachimura and Jackson Hayes, and we're going to get a wide-open corner 3 for Michael Porter Jr. as Nikola Jokic just kind of bullies his way to the lane, and all the eyeballs are on him, which is how he can kind of pick people apart. Okay, I can't even remember what the score was in that Peyton Watson dunk along the baseline. It's like run an action with 2-man game with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. We're going to get Taurean Prince switched on to Nikola Jokic. He's going to back down and just methodically wait until LeBron comes over to help. And then, all these guys are just so perfect at timing those cuts. They've just done it so many times. It's just baked into their offense. Peyton Watson cuts along the baseline. Nikola Jokic hits him in stride. He rises up and dunks with 2 hands. Even like the dunk that Aaron Gordon had along the baseline and Jackson Hayes. They just identified that Jackson was ball watching and that Aaron Gordon had a little bit of an angle there on the left wing. And as soon as they threw that swing pass to him, it was a baked in closeout read. If he racks to the left, he's going to beat Jackson because Jackson is so high and out of position. And as soon as he got past him, he was able to elevate and dunk the basketball. It just felt like any time that there was any real stress on Denver, they were able to just buckle down and get an easy basket. And then on the defensive end of the floor, I thought they did a really nice job at the end of the game stonewalling the rim for the Lakers. Just there was that the verticality play with Aaron Gordon on LeBron James. I thought that was a good overturn. I thought, a lot of times like Laker fans were like, oh, he's got his left hand on his stomach. And to me, there's a lot of incidental contact that happens in basketball games. And when big bodies are kind of barreling into each other around the basket, there's going to be a certain amount of contact. And I thought Aaron Gordon went vertical, and that was a good stop. And then the key stop there after the Jamal Murray 3 at the top of the key, as LeBron was kind of working on that ball screen, they packed the paint, took away the easy reads. LeBron had to go to that little floater, and LeBron just wasn't quite as sharp with his shot making in this game. And that, again, that's kind of the big difference between these teams. I've talked about this, like the Nuggets and the Lakers played close games throughout the playoffs last year, even in the regular season last year. Like they were constantly in these dogfights. But when it comes down to it late, Denver just consistently strangles the life out of them and pulls away. This is why I keep saying I don't trust any team as much as I trust Denver. When I look at Boston, like I said, I thought I was deeply concerned with some of their losses against some of the top teams in the league over the course of the last couple of weeks. A lot of the same issues that we saw in last year's postseason run. Milwaukee, I know they traded for Patrick Beverley. We're going to see what it looks like in the future, but I haven't seen enough from them to even feel as confident as I do in Boston. The Knicks are really, really good, and I'm really interested to see what they look like with all their additions. And if Mitchell Robinson comes back, they can bring a physical imposition to the game at almost all 5 positions, which is really interesting, but they don't bring the same level of high-end shot making that Denver brings to the table. And then the one team that kind of sort of has me like I have a little bit of an eye on them is the LA Clippers, in the sense that like they have the unique ability to truly spread Denver out. And they've had some success against them defensively, but even then, I just feel like over the course of the series, Denver would be able to wear them down with their physical advantages. I said this about a month or maybe a month or two ago. Coming into the season, I saw kind of Denver and Boston on the same tier, and I thought they were just slightly above all the other teams in that lower tier. And over the course of the season, that gap has just grown for me. I've said this before on the show, and I truly believe it. Like, barring an injury to one of their core five players, I would be genuinely surprised if Denver did not win the NBA championship. I think they are one of the truly special teams in the NBA in this era. I think they're going to rack off a bunch of them here over the course of the next 3-4 years. And you know, sometimes this happens in NBA history. A truly special team rises and they start just racking up the titles, and Denver just feels like one of those teams to me. On the Lakers front, it was an impressive effort. Like, you got really rough games out of Rui Hachimura and Austin Reeves. I didn't think LeBron was particularly sharp in this game, even though he put up his typical box score numbers because he's one of the most, impactful all-around players in the league. But by LeBron standards, I didn't think he was particularly great tonight. But Anthony Davis was incredible. Jackson Hayes was ridiculous just with his activity on the offensive glass, just generating extra possessions for the Lakers. I thought Skylar Mays came in and gave them some useful dribble penetration and playmaking, which just was kind of jarring to look at because I'm so used to the Lakers not having any dribble penetration this year. But at the end of the day, at the end of the game, it was Taurean Prince on the floor guarding Jamal Murray, one of the best shot makers in the NBA, and he was able to make the shots. And again, like, what did I say before the season? I said that I saw the Lakers as a legitimate championship contender because of LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves, and because I knew they had the pieces to make a trade to get an upgrade at the 2 or the 3. That was my whole outlook on the season. The Lakers need to make a trade. Those of you guys who've listened to the show have consistently heard me say that. From training camp, forget about training camp, from the end of the Nuggets series all the way through. Even this summer, I was like, just bring everybody back, and then you make a trade when they get to the deadline. And, you know, the Lakers made a decision today. They made a decision that, as is typically the case with the Lakers, they don't want to include first-round draft compensation unless it is for a star player. Even going back to last year's deadline, it wasn't just Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley. They wanted D'Angelo Russell. They facilitated a deal to not get Mike Conley, but to get D'Angelo Russell because that's what the Lakers believe in, star power. And in my opinion, if you trace back through the history of this Laker run with LeBron James on the roster, that's been the consistent issue. The pursuit of star power in lieu of quality role players that make the game easier for LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You know, there was a lot of talk around the Lakers fans today. It's like, oh, they made the right decision. Like, they didn't pull the trigger on a move because they're going to have 3 draft picks this summer and they'll be able to make a bigger fish type of move, right? But I kind of seem to think that maybe if they threw a first-round pick on the table, they could have got Bruce Brown. If you have Bruce Brown on the floor in that game guarding Jamal Murray, you have a much, much, much better chance to win. You do. Not a big flashy name. He's not going to drop 25 points, but he is one of the most impactful perimeter athletes in the league. And that specifically impacts winning in the context of an Austin Reeves, LeBron James, Anthony Davis team more than a star does. And like, here's the deal. I always want to be a little bit reticent to be overly critical of front offices because we don't truly know what offers were on the table. We don't actually know what was said yes to and what was said no to. But I think this offseason will be a good indicator of whether or not they've learned their lesson. They're going to have the assets to make a move. And if they don't go and get a legitimate, bona fide two-way starter at the 2 and the 3, they're going to continue to have the same problems that they've had. Ever since the Russell Westbrook trade, they have not been able to find high-quality starters that can play both ends of the floor. They either have bench players that can do both, guys like Taurean Prince who are like okay at both, or they have guys who are elite at one but not the other. D'Angelo Russell, elite offensive shot creator this season, not an impact athlete, not an impact defensive player, right? Jared Vanderbilt, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, one of the best high motor athletes in the league, but an offensive, liability, right? And that's the Rui Hachimura, like a good big forward that if you put him on a small guard, he can get a basket, but like can't navigate screens, can't guard on the perimeter. So like at the end of the day, the Lakers have their top 5 players are Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, LeBron, AD, Rui Hachimura. Those are their 5 most talented players. Austin and D'Lo play the same position. LeBron and Rui play the same position. That means that more often than not, you're going to have to leave 2 of those guys on the bench. That's like playing with an arm tied behind your back. Those of you guys who've been listening to the show this year know one of my consistent themes that I've leaned back on is who's your 5? Who are your 5 guys? I know who Denver's 5 is. They might even have a 6 with Peyton Watson out there, right? But they've got their core 5 guys. I know who Boston's core 5 guys are. Even teams like Milwaukee, it's like Malik Beasley or Patrick Beverley, but like either way, those 2 lineups have 2 different configurations, but they've got their 5. They know who they're going to close games with. And the Clippers, the same thing. It's just not the case for the Lakers. It is an imbalanced roster constructed by a front office that doesn't understand the little things that win basketball games. And it's been a really frustrating experience. As you guys know, I'm a Lakers fan. It's been a really frustrating experience over the last half dozen years, watching them fumble away a championship foundation with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. It is difficult. It is difficult to be a mediocre 500 basketball team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the roster. It's not easy to do, and the Lakers have pulled it off. It's been super, super discouraging. Moving on to Warriors Pacers. This was a super fun game to watch. Early in the game, the Warriors starters, they went up by 9 in the first few minutes. Steph was red hot. He made his first 7 threes, 6 in his first shift. He was just laser locked in from the opening tip. It's funny because the last game of a long road trip is typically a tough one. Like you're flying home afterwards. You're thinking about your own bed. You're thinking about your family. I have this memory of my last year playing in college at Arizona Christian. We started the season like 12-0, and we were NAIA, and we actually beat an NCAA Division I school in an exhibition before the season. We were really good. And then we had a game against Great Falls, I think was what the school was called, if I remember correctly, but they were a pretty mediocre NAIA team, our last game before winter break. And we were on a 4-game road trip where we were down in Phoenix for the entire week. And I remember in the locker room before the game, everyone was talking about flying home. Everyone was talking about Christmas. Everyone was talking about, what was happening after the game. And we went out and lost. We went out and lost for the first time all season against a bad team because we were on the last game of a long road trip. It's just hard to be away from home for that long, and these NBA teams are on even longer versions of these road trips, even more stressful because they happen multiple times in the same season. In college, typically in non-conference play, you'll face something like that. But once you get into conference play, it's rare for you to be out of town more than 4 or 5 days at a time. Like the 82 game season is really a grind. And it would have been so easy to kind of punt this game, right? A tough game on the road against a Pacers team with Tyrese Haliburton and Pascal Siakam that struggled a little bit since the trade, and they kind of need a win. And Steph had no interest in losing this game. He saw an opportunity to notch their 5th win in 6 tries and to stabilize the season, and he went after it. And like the dead giveaway was like he kept doing these no-look plays. Like he made a 3 on the left wing where he got fouled by Andrew Nembhard, and he was turning and complaining at the ref while the ball was in the air. Never actually looked back to check to see if it went in, just complained at the ref and ran back on defense. He had a ball screen with Draymond where he drew a blitz and threw like a over-the-top pass with his left hand. Didn't even look to see Draymond dunk the basketball or to lay it up. He just turned and ran the other way. There's another one where Draymond did a fake dribble handoff and went to the basket. I think that was the one where he dunked it. Soon as the fake dribble handoff happened, Steph just turned around and ran back on defense. Like he was just so locked in on everything that was happening on the floor. It was like he was a step ahead of everybody. It was such an impressive Steph Curry game. He ended up with 10 threes, if I remember correctly. Just as I've been saying, he's just starting to pick up steam. He's really starting to pick up to where he was in the earlier portion of the season. Warriors did a lot of attacking Tyrese Halliburton early in the game as well. Jonathan Kuminga posted him up on the left block and just hit him with a basic jab step, got baseline, kind of bodied him and went up and dunked it two hands. Andrew Wiggins got him on a dribble drive in kind of like a semi-transition cross-match situation. Brandon Podziemski got him on a back cut. They were just going right at Tyrese Halliburton. And Tyrese Halliburton's not a good defensive player. And I do believe that Tyrese Halliburton has the potential to be, well, I think he will be the next great offensive initiator in the game. But again, like the gap between that and the actual top tier superstars in the league is a commitment to those details. And he has the ability to be a better defender than he is. And he just hasn't been very good. Andrew Wiggins, as of late, has been really good. Only had 11 points in this game. And so a box score watcher might not think Andrew Wiggins was particularly good, but I thought he did a good job guarding Tyrese Halliburton. He had 7 quick points early in the game. Aggressive moves to the basket, hit another big above the break three. He was a big part of that early run that set the tone. He had 5 assists and no turnovers, a couple of really nice driving drop-offs to Draymond, a semi-transition push where he saw Jonathan Kuminga being fronted in the post and gave him a really nice over-the-top feed. I just think Andrew Wiggins has been playing really well. And as I've been saying on the show, like there's a lot to be said about in the event that you weren't going for the home run trade, you're going to gain a lot just by getting Wiggins on track, leaning into Kuminga's growth and seeing what he can bring to the table, right? Chris Paul rejoining the lineup, getting, Gary Payton back to kind of anchor your perimeter defense, although the perimeter defense has been so much better as of late. But I think Wiggins for the last couple of weeks has been maybe not in the box score close to what he was in 2022, but I feel like he's trending pretty heavily in that direction. We got 17 more minutes tonight of Jonathan Kuminga, Andrew Wiggins, and Draymond Green. If you guys remember, I talked about this earlier today in the live show in the trade deadline, breaking down the game last night against Philly. But that Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, Andrew Wiggins front line has been super successful for the Warriors in the last 10 games. And on the season now, they have 182 minutes together. They are plus 90. In tonight's game, they had a 135 offensive rating and 87 defensive rating. A plus 48 net rating tonight. They were plus 17 in 17 minutes. Like, it's already their second best lineup of the entire season. Plus 90 in 182 minutes. The only lineup that's better is Chris Paul, Dario Saric, and Brandon Podziemski as a 3-man grouping. They're plus 91 in 235 minutes. Give the Warriors one more game, and they'll be their best lineup of the season already. And you remember, Steve Kerr came out early in the season and said that lineup was struggling, and they were. Like, they've just been so incredibly good over the last 10 games. That same group dominated the end of the second quarter and the early third quarter, just like they did against the Sixers. Once again, just like they did against the Sixers, they blew the game open in that third quarter. As a matter of fact, it's starting to look a lot more like the old Warriors in the way they used to win, blowing teams out in third quarter runs. They have a plus 31 net rating in the third quarters of this 6-game stretch. They're outscoring teams by 31 points per 100 possessions, plus 47 points total in the 6-game stretch. They're averaging winning the third quarter by 8 points over this span. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the bench group. This group is kind of a funky lineup. Brandon Podziemski, Lester Quinones, Jonathan Kuminga, Guy Santos, and Dario Saric. They played super hard, dominated the glass. Here's a crazy stat for you. They grabbed 86% of their opponent's misses in 7 minutes tonight. They grabbed 80% of their own misses. They got an offensive rebound on 80% of their own misses in today's game. That group. And like, I talk about this concept all the time, but like high motor athletes in the NBA regular season in particular, you got to lean on them. They can win you games. Guy Santos is just a big dude who plays super hard. That is super valuable. Like, Brandon Podziemski has been one of the best rebounding guards in the league this year, just continually grabbing highly contested rebounds. Came right out the gate this year, tonight. Like in the first 2 possessions, had a big offensive rebound that hit Steph for his first 3. Literally, Steph's first 3 came off of Brandon Podziemski offensive rebound. He helped trigger that start to the game. Had a big defensive rebound on the first possession too. Like, it's just, that lineup is kind of funny because Podziemski kind of organizes them and he did a nice job running the offense, but they just play super damn hard and they dominate the glass. They grew the lead to 20 plus while Steph was on the bench. Super encouraging. I mean, they're back up to 24 and 25. Feels like they have real momentum for the first time this season. And it's not just because they've won 5 out of 6. They've had stretches this year where they've won some games, but it's because they've actually found some stuff. They've actually found some lineup groupings that work. It feels like they're starting to get to their five. And again, it's kind of like the Bucks, where it depends on who you're going to play at the two there, whether it's Clay or Brandon Podziemski. But it feels like the core four around the five is Steph, Kuminga, Wiggins, and Green. That's your core lineup. That feels sustainable to me. There's a large sample size there. That's 182 minutes of that front line of them being dominant. That's a real sustainable thing. Now, they're going to be just like I said last year, they're or earlier this year, they're just like the Lakers last year. They're going to have to rip off, 15 out of 25 games to give themselves a better chance at a playoff path, because I think it's going to be important for them to get in the top part of that play-in tournament bracket in that 7 or 8 zone. And I think they're 3.5 games back right now of the 8 seed, if I'm not mistaken. But I think it's important for them to get up there, because if they can win one of those games, you're probably going to have a chance against you're going to have basically a 50-50 chance of getting a younger, inexperienced team like the Oklahoma City Thunder or the Minnesota Timberwolves or the Clippers, who, obviously have had issues getting to the playoffs healthy, staying healthy in the playoffs. And when they get to the playoffs, they lean heavily on pull-up jump shooting and have shown some flaws in the past. I'm high on the Clippers, but the point is there are some beatable teams there at the top of the conference. The Timberwolves have been really bad in late game situations and clutch situations as of late. I think that's a thing the Warriors could capitalize on. The Thunder are young and small. I think that's a thing the Warriors could capitalize on. So, like, if they can get up into that play-in tournament, there's, I think it's a long shot for this team to win the title, obviously, just because they're young and they don't really have a legitimate secondary star next to Steph, but they have a chance to make some noise. And they're really starting to pick up some steam at this point in the season. All right, we're going to give this chat a shot here. I've got the chat here in front of me. So anybody wants to drop some questions, drop them in the YouTube chat here live, and we will get to a few of them here for maybe 10, 15 minutes or so. Let's give it a second. Question is a random Star Wars question. Hell yeah. We'll get to the Star Wars question in a minute. Let's get to some basketball stuff. If you were to be a part of an NBA staff, what staff position would interest you, and what could you do to help an NBA team become better? Love from Australia. So I personally am a huge fan of skills training. So I look at like what Phil Handy does for the Lakers. I've trained players individually. Training is a big part of what I do for the high school team that I work with. Like, I personally have been obsessed in my like kind of late basketball career with like footwork, dribble combinations, all of the high level scoring stuff that you see around the higher levels of basketball now. That's been stuff that I've just been completely obsessed with in this late portion of my time playing the game. And so I love just teaching that stuff to the next generation of basketball players. And that's definitely something that I would really enjoy doing for a staff. Let's see. Next question. Are the Bucks still your second best team in the East? I like the Knicks. How about you? So here's the thing. I really like the Knicks, but we've only seen a few games of this group together. Like, what about like maybe 10 games or so? And also, we don't know if Mitchell Robinson's coming back. We haven't seen what Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks look like. So, like, I kind of just want to see some more of them before we make a call. But like, I do think the Bucks have another level they can get to, and they could very well have the two best players in that series potentially. So I think it's too early to move them past them, but I definitely think that's on the table. Let's see. Next question. Since the deadline has passed, do you think we will see a super locked in and focused LeBron going forward? I thought his body language was pretty bad early tonight. And I mean, LeBron did engage himself and he did make some plays, but like, here's the thing, like, put yourself in his shoes. He's 39, turns 40 next season. And like, even though, let's just say, for instance, flipping a first round pick for Bruce Brown, even though that might not be the best move for the Lakers' future, it certainly is the best move for LeBron's situation, right? And so they're kind of at cross purposes here in a lot of ways. We're like, the Lakers are trying to think bigger picture, I guess, and LeBron is thinking about the moment. And obviously he's discouraged because he doesn't think this team can win. And here's the thing, I don't know. I thought today was a pretty strong indicator that they're still not even on the same playing field as Denver. And so I don't know. We'll have to watch LeBron's body language over the next couple of weeks. It's going to be really interesting to see. I hope, just as a competitor, that he still fights, but we'll see what happens. Should Jamal Murray be rated higher as a player? He consistently destroys teams in the clutch and stepped up a ton in last year's playoffs. I think I had him 15th, if I remember correctly. It was 15th or 16th in my player rankings this summer. But like, the bottom line is, when it comes to actual playoff shot making, he's actually one of the very best in the league. And I thought the game that he had in Boston about what was that, 2-3 weeks ago, where he went into Boston and just like was maybe even the best player on the floor, second best player on the floor, like straight up outplayed any of the Celtics perimeter guys. Like, he's the combination of strong with a decent amount of size, which is huge for getting to your spots in the postseason. He has all of the different footwork and dribble combinations, like we were talking about early. He can shoot over his left shoulder. He can shoot over his right shoulder. He can shoot drifting to his left. He can shoot drifting to his right. He can shoot off the catch. He can shoot off the dribble. He can shoot in the close range. He can shoot in the mid range. He can shoot long twos. He could shoot deep threes. He's got literally everything in the bag, including a floater, like the floater that he hit that put them up 5 late tonight. And so I think that, combined with just supreme confidence, makes him one of the best playoff players in the league, honestly. But like, it's just tough to tell, because the other part of it too is like, he is playing with Nikola Jokic, and that fundamentally changes like the way ball screen coverages are compared to a typical screen and roll guy. And like, so it's always difficult to say, for instance, you thought he was better than SGA. Like, I obviously don't think that's the case, but like, let's say you're a Nuggets fan and you're like, I think Jamal Murray's better than SGA. They're just not the same role. Like, Shea's at the top of the scouting report. Jamal's not. Like, so there is something to be said about the role that he's in. But again, it doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter what you are in a vacuum. Doesn't really matter what you are for another team. It matters what you are for your team. And on Jamal's team, he impacts games like a superstar, and it's a big part of how they won the title. Let's see here. Spencer Dinwiddie was at the Mavs game. Seems like another blow for LA. Yeah, I saw something like that. And I actually think that's a really good fit for the Mavs, just because the Mavs will, like, Spencer Dinwiddie is very much an on an island type of shot creator. And so he struggles in like real motion systems. But like, if you really play spread the floor, 4 out, 1 in, brute force offense the way that Dallas does, he's actually a really nice fit. So I actually think that makes some sense. I would have liked him for LA, just because, even though I don't think it's a good fit necessarily, he's a good athlete at the guard position, and at a veteran minimum prorated buyout contract, it's just a really good deal for the talent, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I believe the Lakers can beat Denver in a series if fully healthy. Look at that Celtics game and the energy with Vando. We have Vando. We win tonight. Agree? I don't agree personally. I thought that not only did Denver win tonight, but I thought they kind of coasted for large stretches of the game. I think that specifically with Jared Vanderbilt on the floor, they would really, really struggle to score against Denver, just by the way they were kind of packing the paint, especially late in the game. I tend to think that Denver's just on an entirely different tier than the Lakers, and the only thing that would flip that equation for me is if they legitimately had a bona fide two-way athlete that they could put on Jamal Murray, but also not sacrifice the offensive limitations that come from some of the other guys they have on the roster. Who should the Warriors look at in the buyout market? I saw Thaddeus Young was available. He's an interesting option. I saw Marcus Morris Sr. was available. I think getting another big forward that can kind of help them on both ends of the floor would be useful. Oh, this is a good one. Who do you think is the best guard in the East? My own opinion is it's Brunson, but for you, who is it? Love from the Philippines. Um, that's actually a really good question. Brunson has played better than anybody in the East this year. But I think again, like Dame is in a new situation, is kind of figuring things out. Brunson, you could tell, is just super, super comfortable. I'd have a hard time picking against Dame in a playoff setting over a guy like Jalen Brunson. But I think without a doubt, he's been the best guard in the East this season. And he's certainly on that same tier. Like if it was Dame, it'd be by a hair. And I said this with Colin Coward in our show the other night, but I actually think Jalen Brunson belongs on that tier with the best guards in the league right now. Let's see, we'll do two or three more. What NBA player would you compare Jonathan Kuminga's game to? This is a really tough one for me because like some of the size and quickness and athleticism reminds me of Tracy McGrady, but he's nowhere near as like polished as a scorer and with his footwork as Tracy McGrady was. But like I do think he's got some of that potential. I think you're seeing a lot more double teams thrown his way. That was something that kind of stood out to me in tonight's game. Excuse me. And so it'll be really interesting to see his development over the course of the next couple of years as it pertains to teams attacking his weaknesses. The jumper too, like he's been shooting the ball well, but I do think you're going to see teams start to back off of him and really test his jump shot a little bit too. But I don't really. It's like to me, he's like a super, super, super raw version of Tracy McGrady, and obviously the sky's the limit with him, but um, it's hard to find a comp really. Let's see. Hi, sir. Do you think the return of Chris Paul will affect the flow of the offense for the Warriors? Chris Paul loves the slow down half court offense, while the Warriors typically love to get out in transition. I think we've seen enough this year of Chris Paul with the bench group and how good it looked. Like I mentioned earlier, their best three-man group for the season, even still with how well the front line is played, is Chris Paul with Dario Saric and Brandon Podziemski. Just imagine that lineup today, but without Lester Quinones. Instead, it'd be Chris Paul in all likelihood, and I still think they'd be pretty damn good. How do you think the Nuggets can maintain their core in the long run, or even potentially get better, considering they can't really afford to sign good players? So it's starting to look like if you really kind of look at it, I think the guy that they'll have to replace first will be Contavious Caldwell Pope. But I mean, Christian Brown could very well be that guy. I think that specific position is of vital importance to them too, because he's the primary point of attack defender in a lot of cases. And it'll be interesting to see who they end up replacing him with in the long run, whether that's Christian Brown or it's someone else. But I mean, at the end of the day, like you have an obligation as an ownership group to keep Aaron Gordon paid, to keep Michael Porter Jr. paid, to keep Nikola Jokic paid, obviously, and to keep Jamal Murray paid. And so, like, even if you got to go into the tax for a few years, like this is again a truly special team, and I think it's worth capitalizing on. All right, we'll do two more, and we'll get out of here. Let's see. Thoughts on Minnesota picking up Monty Morris as a backup point guard yesterday? So I think Monty Morris is actually a good backup guard. I think he's as good an option as you'll find there throughout the league. I'm blanking on the backup guard's name for the Timberwolves. I was just Jordan McLaughlin. Jordan McLaughlin's shooting better this season, but like he still is. He's one of the worst backup guards in the league, and so I think it was just an upgrade that they kind of saw as a need. But to me, like a lot of these moves. I think the Bucks moves and the Suns moves might actually have more impact because I could actually see Patrick Beverly closing games. I could actually see Royce O'Neal closing games for the Suns. A lot of these other moves, whether it's Xavier Tillman or like Amani Morris, like chances are they're probably not going to be more than like 15-minute a game guys when you get to the postseason, like on the high end. So like if some of those guys might not even be in the rotation. And so to me, they're more just regular season fixes. All right, we'll do one more and then we'll get out of here. Let's find a good one. When will you redo your power rankings contender list? So I was actually talking. I got into an argument with Sam Vecini on the phone last night because I was like, we were talking about the Thunder, and he's much higher on the Thunder as a playoff team than I am, and it was just fun. It was like a good heated debate because I believe like I don't think the Lakers as currently constructed without having made a trade. I don't know that they. I would. I'm certain they'd lose to Denver. I'm certain they'd lose to the Clippers. I'm even kind of on the fence with them with the Timberwolves without having a good perimeter defender. But like the Thunder specifically, as a super young and small team, they're a team that I think the Lakers could beat in a playoff series. And me and Sam got in this big argument about it, obviously just for fun. And I was like, dude, we got to do this with all the contenders. So what we're going to do is in the week break before the All-Star game, I think it's actually the week after the All-Star game. But we're going to have Sam on and we're going to basically, I'm going to redo my entire contender tiers and we're going to go kind of like line by line through and kind of debate all the teams. And so we'll get into that at that point. Gives us some time over the course of the next couple of weeks to actually see these new lineups play together before we make those calls. This was fun. I enjoyed doing the chat. We're going to definitely do that some more in the future. I appreciate all you guys for the questions. I appreciate all of you guys for supporting the show. It's been obviously just a blast watching this channel grow. We're already to almost 50,000 subscribers when we just launched the channel right before the start of the regular season. So just from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much for supporting the show. Tomorrow, I think we're scheduled to do Jovan in kind of like the mid morning. So we'll have it definitely have an episode on the Lakers, but depending on how the rest of my schedule goes in the morning, I don't think we're going to do another show tomorrow. So we'll have that Lakers show tomorrow with Jovan, and then we're going to take the rest of the weekend off, and then we'll be back Monday with power rankings and some game breakdowns. As always, I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow.